Hey folks, thanks for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Today I got a great treat. I got Angel Espino. To start out with, he's the owner and operator of PSN Radio, but first I want to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving and what I was thankful for. I was thankful for friends, family, and even my enemies because they have made me what I am. With that being said, roast duckling with Ducky's port sauce was what I prepared today. I got the recipe up, but if you want to find it, you can always go to Duckhorn Vineyards, and it will have roast duckling with Dickey's port sauce. The port I used happened to be Fairbanks port. The port that they use is a little more expensive, but I did a few things. I'll just be real quick. I doubled the butter, follow the recipe exactly. I'll probably do a show on this, but I don't want to keep going on with it. I just want to show you a couple pictures of what it looked like. I stuffed it with wild rice. When I cooked it, I threw in 2 oranges after I put on the cumin. I think it's cumin. I'm mind dumping it now. Salt and pepper rub. And then I squeezed out the orange juice front and back, put the 2 lemons inside to keep the juice, put it in a covered throwaway pan. And this is when it was stuffed with wild rice, carrots, peppers, and onion, and red onion, and celery. And, of course, there's a pumpkin pie with a little triangle missing, so I ate that. Now, that being said, I want to introduce you to the man who's inside the jackal's head, Angel Espino. And awesome dude. We've known each other for a long time, and we are going to deal with Star Wars. How you been, brother?
It's a pleasure to be on with you, my friend. I've been doing pretty well, and let me tell you, you got me hungry with the lineup there.
Oh, yeah, man. It made me
Good
hungry
food.
making it. Couldn't wait to eat it.
Oh, man, I see. I had a heck of a gourmet also this weekend, or this week for Thanksgiving, and today I had a delicious meal, if you don't mind me telling the audience.
Go on and rock it, man.
All right. Well, I sat down and I had a delicious meal at an establishment called Taco Bell. My meal was cooked in a dirty microwave, cooked by people who probably didn't wash their hands very well. So the extra sauce in the burrito might not even be legal, these folks. But sorry, Mr. Trump. But the sauces, the spices in the hot Diablo spice sauce, always hits good, now and later. But delicious.
Oh, yeah, it pays you back quick. If you really like spicy foods like I do, brother, you will love, Tabasco has a scorpion.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Pepper.
Well, see, I never leave home without my personal bottle of hot sauce, Tapatio. That's the sauce I always carry with me wherever I go. But Taco Bell has this Diablo sauce, which is to die for. But I'm a big hot sauce fan myself, so I have Tapatio with me at all times.
Oh, yeah,
Good
Tapatio,
stuff.
I enjoy
Yep.
that one, too. I usually will have Tapatio or Frank's with me, and always Tony Chachere's extra hot. Some Cajun seasoning.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's it. That's hitting me close to home right here, brother. Let me tell you, that's hitting the heart. I love hot sauces. Something that goes on every meal. Even when I do breakfast in the morning with eggs or whatever, gotta put some hot sauce in the eggs. Gotta do it.
Gotta dump it right on, brother. Gotta dump it right on. Well, we're gonna dip right in to the first subject, which we already talked about, and that is, as you guys know, that come to Kaiser's Castle, you're all sitting in the big orange chair, or big orange couch, and you're grabbing your coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation, and you're enjoying a conversation while you watch me, along with Angel, and this is Angel's headquarters, his control room, his master room, and from that area, we're going to have a face-to-face conversation pretty much on The Mandalorian, and we're going to reboot some of what was on the other. And I'm seeing some things that are looking like some of our predictions that we both had are about to come true. Do you want to rehash what your thoughts were on it first? You go first. That way we can sort of jam it together.
Okay. I'll tell you this much. I was not expecting to love the show as much as I have. The first 3 or 4 episodes in, I went in with kind of a grain of salt because we've never seen Star Wars live action on TV. For the first time, it's always been on the big screen, so I wasn't sure what to expect. And there's always been cartoons and whatnot. And I'll tell you what, this is as good as any cinematic Star Wars I've ever seen. Going in, the very first episode was very serious, had a couple of moments of humor, but overall it was a serious, almost Western-like approach, which I love because it's Star Wars and these are bounty hunters. But the attention to detail was phenomenal. The way people spoke, the dialogue, the overall look on the set, the mannerisms of the Mandalorians, the actual armor and look of these Mandalorians, it was ideal. And not only to like the new canon, which is the new comics that Disney's put out, but if you even go back to the old Mandalorian lore and the way they look and the way they act, I mean, you could tell that the attention to detail was phenomenal for the Legend Star Wars compared to like the new Disney Star Wars, and they're blending in the two because a lot of fans were mad when they said, okay, all this old stuff is now just Legends and none of this is canon. So there's a big uproar by us, the geeks, the fans, and Disney and Lucasfilms is taking bits and parts and are like putting it together for the new canon, and you could really see what Jon Favreau did, who was running the Mandalorian TV series, where he's incorporating things in there, but he doesn't want to tread over certain things. Like you see the robot that looks like IG-88, right? But in the series, he's IG-11 instead of IG-88,
right?
Because we all have expectations of what IG-88 looks and does, and how he acts in the original films. So you don't want to tread over that, but you want to have something that reminds you of that. And I'm pretty sure in a galaxy far, far away, or even here on Earth, you can have more than one robot that looks the same. So it brings you to that nostalgia, but doesn't tread over like what IG-88 was. Which, by the way, that's the name of one of my laptops, IG-88. I'm a Star Wars geek, gotta admit it. So when I saw that, I was like, that is so cool, because it doesn't completely, undo what IG-88 was, but now we have IG-11, we have IG-88, and it's a different character, but it looks almost the same, and I love that. I love, that part of what they're doing here. They're setting up their own continuities, but it's all, paying tribute and, really bringing in the past trilogy, which is the original trilogy. It's bringing in the feel of the prequels with some of the effects, the canon from the old comic books that are now legend, the stuff from the new comic line from the new, what is considered canon from the Disney universe or Disney era. That since they bought Lucasfilms, and of course, we have Baby Yoda, which we're going to talk, I'm sure, in length about. As he's being called, or it's being called now, because it doesn't officially have a name yet. But we're kind of like just giving it that Baby Yoda name until it officially gets its name. We don't even know if it's a boy or girl at this point. But there's so much stuff with Mandalorian. I for myself, so far, I have nothing to complain about. And usually, I'm, critical, but not too harsh, because Star Wars is something different from regular films, for me anyway. I'm a lifelong fan. So I tend to be a little bit more, lenient towards certain things, because I get the gist of where they're doing something, sometimes a little bit more than the casual fans do. So I complain a lot less, where somebody might be irritated by a certain character or a certain dialogue. To me, I'll be like, well, it actually fits right in because of this or that, and I can find a reason to fit most of people's complaints, and at the end you'll be like, well, I guess I'm complaining for no reason. And I've had that happen before, by the way, where I've had people be like, well, I don't like this about it. I'm like, yeah, but if you don't like that, and you like this from the original trilogy, then you're a hypocrite, because they're doing the same kind of thing. And then people are like, oh yeah, I'm stupid. So I've had that conversation before, and usually it works out in my favor. Now I've been a fan since I was a kid. I'm not gonna lie. I'm 41 now, and I've been a fan since I was probably like 4.
Well, I'm 51, and I'll tell you this, brother. I first got turned on to, it was not called A New Hope when I got the book,
Yep.
and it wasn't just called Star Wars. It was called The Adventures of Luke Skywalker. And I read that before it ever was a movie. They actually put it out like a year or two before.
Yeah, it was like a pamphlet type of like comic-y type of thing that Lucas released just to get people warmed up to it. I remember seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it to my son. He still has it. But I was ravenous with reading everything Star Wars. Han Solo's Revenge, Boba Fett's Adventures. They did have some books on that really went in depth on a lot of Mandalorian lore. And we've both seen the videos that talk about 24,000 years of honor, going all the way back to the first Mandalorians, which weren't even humans. And a lot of people don't realize that. And their religion stems from 3 gods. They have the god of war, and basically it's a sin not to be in war by their code. We can go into all that stuff. Then you have the god of, can't remember what it was. There's a second god that I'm mind dumping right now, and then you have the god of basically slothfulness, and that's the one nobody wants to be. And so those 3 gods are that triumvirate are what they worship. And it's kind of unique because they don't really have a devil per se. And, but they have a codec. And, Jaster Maril is the guy who rescued Jango Fett. And he's the one who made Jango Fett Mandalorian. And he himself was human and also a foundling. That's the normal way that Mandalorians become Mandalorians. It's become that way. I mean, yeah, there are pure born, but still their parents may have been foundlings. So, if you're not from the original heritage of it, you're not really Mandalorian because you didn't kill the mythosaurs and all that stuff. But anyway, so that's the line. And then Boba is a pure clone of Jango. And you see that in one of the Star Wars. I think it's Star Wars Episode 2. It was 2. And you see how that ends.
Attack of the Clones, which, by the way, had an epic name. It's funny because people hated that name, and I'm like, that is so like Lucas serial 1950s Attack of the Tomatoes, Attack of the Clones. How could you hate that name? That's an awesome name for a Star Wars movie. I've always liked that name.
I have too, because it's a direct drawback to the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And so when Obi-Wan Kenobi was talking about the Clone Wars, that's what he meant. And then it leads into the video games that people played. I mean, I used to just watch people play them because I can't play video games for shit. But it was always neat to see the interactions between them, including the storyline of Kreia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another big player, but I don't. We're diverging, I guess. But let's stay on the Mandalorian for a minute. I agree with you completely on the setup of it. This episode that happened today, I wish you could have seen it. I'm going to have to talk around it because I don't want to ruin it for you.
Okay.
But you again see you again see the playfulness of Baby Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
You see a bond starting to develop, and you see that the Mandalorian actually wants the best for this baby. And I got to be real cryptic about it, but you get introduced.
It's almost like a fatherly bond, or more than anything else, right? So that's kind of like why I'm seeing this, because if you watch the first 3 episodes, he went through some trauma as a kid. So I think when he saw the baby being defenseless, that kind of hit home for him, because even though he's a bounty hunter, he has feelings. He's not all like ice cold either. He's not a robot. He's still a human under that Mandalorian suit. And I love the part where he's thinking back and reflecting on his own childhood. And then that's when he kind of turns. He's like, all right, screw this. I'm going to save the kid.
As he's about to fly off, he sees that little ball that was on the controller and that Baby Yoda kept unscrewing. and he had to put it back on, and then he gets that flashback to his youth, and he's like, you just see him turn it down and get out, and you knew it was coming, and that showed the brotherhood of the Mandalorians. Even the guy who was the heavy infantry guy, with his Gatling gun, his Gal, a version of our Gal today.
Who was fighting with him earlier in the episode too? By the way, they were arguing. I love it because they argue, but then when the head of the group says stop, they're like, yes, they follow the Queen basically.
Well, see, that's the thing. That would be more new Mandalorians, and Mandalorians follow Mandalore,
right?
And they went back to that because of you probably played the video game. There was a Duchess that ran Mandalore and really screwed it up and caused a civil war. And instead of it being the mask that created the Mandalore and who could call himself Mandalore, you had the dark saber. And I think we're probably going to see a reemergence of the dark saber somehow. If she wields it, if she has that, which we did not see, because remember, she was even out there in that fight. She was kicking some ass too. But the thing is, she didn't produce a dark saber, so she can't be Mandalore. She can't be the Queen. She's just a respected person and an armorer. So that just said a lot. I don't remember. She was the one or was it she or he, the heavy gunner, that said, now we have to be live in the shadows until we can be out again.
Right.
And that says that they're in a mode of expansion. Mm-hmm. And so that's really unique that they're talking about it in those ways now. And
now they haven't used her name yet, right? Like she hasn't officially been named on the show, or cause I've missed that if they gave her name away.
They have not named her at all. She's just they call her the armorer.
Right.
In quotes, I'm putting it in quotes. That's not the name that they call her, but that's what she is.
No, the reason I asked that is because remember on the show Rebels, we had Sabine Wren, who was Mandalorian, and she was very young at the time. I'm thinking this could be a throwback to Sabine, and it might be her at an older age.
I would agree with you, except remember one of the questions she asked was, have you taken your helmet off and anybody seen you? No. Has anybody else taken your helmet off? And remember, Sabine Wren did a lot of her stuff without the helmet. And so
she was a lot younger. But it was a lot younger, and then she was running her own cruises with the Ghost and the Rebels. So, I mean, when you get to, like, a certain age and you have your own group in Mandalore, I mean, that might change your mindset. Remember, this is how many years in the future from Rebels? So there's a good chance that, her overall, mindset might be more hardcore now than it was on Rebels, which, look, I don't do the same things I did 20 years ago. Neither do you. We evolve. So this might be her at a later stage. She's now running her own, her own set, and she's taking all like the actual cues from being a Mandalorian and implementing what it is to be an actual Mandalorian, because it's been so many years and she's now more focused on being a Mandalorian. She's no longer one of the rebels.
I get where you're coming from, but because of their religion, they have a saying, helmet on, heart gone. And for them to always be ready, it's in the Rasenare.
Yeah. But it is a took away from the past, because even the other Mandalorians on Rebels, some of them took their helmets off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, but those were either new Mandalorians, correct. The old Mandalorians that were being tricked by the Sith were following the old ways.
Right.
The new Mandalorians caused Mandalore to get fucked up. And remember, Mandalore doesn't exist anymore because they bombed the fuck out of it, and it was the Jedis who did it.
Yep.
So, they hate the Empire, and they also hate the Jedis. And
I'm just saying, keep that, in mind. I mean, it might be Sabine. That'd be a neat way to tie everything in from, because I've seen, like, where they're trying to tie in Rebels to more of the live action stuff, like the ship, the Ghost, actually comes out in episode 9.
Oh, well, not just that, brother. If you think about this, the Razor Quest is ship, right?
Yep.
he lands it. First person he runs into when he's in the little village is a rebel shock trooper, a drop trooper. And
Right.
she's played by Gina Carano, I think is her name. And I believe her name's Cara Dune or something like that in the movie, in the show. But they get into an epic fight. She's from MMA, so she's a badass little lady, or big lady, I should say.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
One of the most epic choreographed fights. It comes to a draw, and she sits at the table and he buys her soup, whatever. But it's really a decent film. This one, it showed a lot more filmography from inside the helmet. That's all I'll say. You'll like it. I don't want to get too deep into it for those who haven't watched it, or for you to ruin it. But anyways, he and her have a friendship, so that could be that maybe they have a more kinder eye. But in the first movie, when he was getting his contract, they were talking about, well, tell the Republic, they were still using Imperial credits, and he said, well, tell the Republic, about, this, the problem he thought of with the Imperial people doing that, or whatever was going on. There was some problem. And Carl Weathers' character, I'm mind dumping his name, damn it. The guild leader was like, well, do you want to file a complaint with the Imperial with the rebels? And he goes, they're useless, and that was something that was up. And he again said, it is the way. So that's an epic callback. I'm telling you, I think you're right. I think they're going back to the old ways. It could be Sabine, but there would have to be a total mind shift, if I remember her from that character correctly, on how devoted she was to the rebellion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd be my thought.
Yeah, but remember, it's been an X amount of years. It hasn't been 2 or 3 years. It's been several decades. So it's enough time for her to develop a different mindset and evolve from where she was on Rebels to now. And Carl Weathers, by the way, I remember he plays Grief Karga.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know why that name eluded me. Sorry, brother.
No, it's cool. And by the way, as soon as I saw him, and his voice fits in so perfectly. I mean, he is badass. I love Carl Weathers and everything he's ever been in. And it's funny, I saw a meme right after seeing the first few episodes, which was it was hysterical. It shows the bounty that he sent him on, and it has the three little holograph things coming out. And one of the bounties is the Russian from Rocky IV. Another bounty is the alien from Aliens. And I can't remember what the third bounty was. But it's
the Predator?
It could be Predator, yeah. It could be one of those. It's from basically three movies. But actually, one is Predator. But it's from 3 movies he's died in, basically. And those are the bounties he's going to send him on. Which they should have had Adam Sandler's face in there, because remember he was on Happy Gilmore also, and he died in that as well. Carl Weathers dies in everything. I have no idea why, but just having him on the show was awesome.
He's a phenomenal actor. I agree with you, man. I mean, everything he's been in, I've enjoyed, and he always brings that good-natured, really jolly kind of feel to every movie he's in. And just seems like a decent dude, the kind of dude that if you ran into him somewhere and said, hey, he'd probably sit down and talk to you for a minute, like he's got time to chew the fat. There was a movie, I can't remember what it was, I don't think he died in it, but some guy had some bones, and it's a funny one. They joke around with him still to this day about it, where he's like, oh, no, that's the base for a soup. Put them bones in some water, and you got yourself a broth. And then what you do, and he explains to this dude how to make a meal out of a couple bones. It's fucking hilarious.
He's awesome, man. Love Carl Weathers. And if you guys don't know who Carl Weathers is, everybody knows this character, Apollo Creed.
Yep.
That's it. That's the most legendary character he ever played, and that's, and of course, in the Rocky series.
Yep, that's true. And in not Commando, but the first Predator.
Yep.
I can't remember his name there, but he was the one who carried 2 MP5s.
Mm-hmm.
And can't remember his name, though. I don't know why. Names just elude me nowadays. I mean, I can visually still have photographic memory, but the names are no longer coinciding, so my synapses aren't firing fully.
It happens. Let me see. Predator. That was, man, what was the name of Predators? Wasn't it Dylan?
Dylan, I think, was that guy that was reading comic books, I think.
Are you sure? No, I'm pretty sure it was Dylan.
Might be. For some reason, I'm picturing it with that guy with comic books when you said it. But
I know he played Chubbs and Happy Gilmore. I'll never forget that. And he also did an uncredited scene in Little Nicky with Adam Sandler. Also, that's why I'm saying he should have had Adam Sandler's face as one of those holograms in that meme. But I'm pretty sure it was Dylan, if I remember right.
Might be. Like I said, I could be wrong on it. I'm not going to die on that hill. But anywho, so getting back to the story line, you see a development of him having basic care. There's even a part in this movie where you see he's doing the typical Yoda thing like Yoda did to Luke when he first met him, throwing stuff out of his little survival box over his shoulder. Yep. Well, he does that, when he was spinning off the handle to that thing that made the Mandalorian go back and grab him. Mm-hmm. He's messing around with something, and finally he puts him on his lap and flies him to this place. And they finally did create an entirely new world, and I loved it. This one was, and it starts out on that world. I'm not going to tell you how, but it's pretty cool. You can tell what they're doing and how they're doing it. So can't really explain much more without giving the plot away. But it proves in the end that he's starting to develop relationships. And so they really tried to build the characters. There was a lot of room for character development. And that's something that I think in the new Star Wars they didn't do for the first one. And the second one, you knew a little more about them, but you're slowly finding out about them. And I don't know what the next one will be, but I'm not a fan of the new ones. I just got to be honest. The only 2 new ones, and I know a lot of people will hate on me for this, was Solo. I liked it. And I liked the one where you saw them go and steal the Death Star plans. And honestly, my favorite character from that was that blind dude that was like, I am the Force is with me.
Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen. Yeah, man. I love Donnie Yen. Shout outs to him. He is epic and everything. If you've never seen IP Man with Donnie Yen, the trilogy, I don't care what you have to do in life, whether you have to steal it. Find a way to watch those movies, the IP Man trilogy, or Ip Man.
Oh,
Those are some of the best martial arts movies, and they're based on a true story. They're based on the guy who trained it years and years ago, who trained Bruce Lee. It's his Bruce Lee sensei, basically, and it's his life story and what he went through. In fact, in the third IP Man or Ip Man, you see a very young Bruce Lee when he's actually introduced to him as a kid, and it's really brief, and they're like, Master, this is young Mr. Lee, and it's a very quick, almost Star Wars-ish introduction from one character to another, where he's like, oh, Mr. Lee, and then it just goes dark, because you know already what the history is going to be from that point on. But this is directly dealing with Bruce Lee's sensei, and who was one of the most instrumental people teaching him the martial arts. Remember, Bruce Lee's story is incredible, but who taught him all that before, he became Bruce Lee? And
now, did his master have a hand in development of Jeet Kune Do, or was that just Bruce Lee's philosophy?
No, that was pure Bruce Lee, but he got a lot of that philosophy from Ip Man. A lot of Jeet Kune Do is a mixture of different fighting forms. By the way, I grew up a humongous Bruce Lee fan, so I'm a wealth of information on Bruce Lee also. That was like my first idol and hero was Bruce Lee. In anything, I used to take martial arts as a kid, so that was like God to me. And he created Jeet Kune Do, but he originally based it on what Ip Man taught him in his form of Chinese karate. And, Jeet Kune Do was kind of a mixture of what he saw over the years as he evolved his art form. And Bruce Lee was a very smart dude, that's why he was such a philosopher also. He learned other people's art forms and other forms of martial arts to not only, understand how to combat somebody and be offensive, but how to defend himself and be more on the defensive, mix it all together so there's no way to come at him and beat him in a way that he can't, figure out what you're doing. And that's where Jeet Kune Do comes out. And it's, of course in the philosophy is the way of the fist, the intercepting fist, but in this deepest form is a way to combat the movement of your opponent so you know exactly where he's coming at you before even he is fully aware that he's going to do that. So you're always thinking ahead of what's going to happen. So it's fully a defensive mode, but at the same time he was so quick he was able to infuse defensive with offensive. That's why he had the 1-inch punch which he developed.
1-inch power punch. Yep.
Yep.
But he also incorporated on his defensive a lot of Hapkido.
Correct.
And
yep.
You could tell that. I mean, he blended a lot of Asian, not just. I mean, there was some Filipino. I believe it was the guy who is known as
even yoga
fighter, huh?
Yeah, he even infused some yoga. I mean, there's a lot that went into Jeet Kune Do.
Right. Yeah. Like I was saying, he infused a lot of Danis Santos.
Yes.
And I believe he's a Filipino knife fighter and eskrima stick fighter. And he put a lot of his methodologies in it because you see him using the sticks several times. And I'm not talking about nunchaku. I'm talking about eskrima stick, batons.
Yep.
And so you see that in Game of Death, both of those forms. But anyways, let's get back to Star Wars. We went on that tirade, and we both could talk about that all night. But I'm sure.
I could do a 5-hour episode easily on Bruce Lee and just go on and on and on and on and on. I mean, I guess I do before we switch back. To me, Bruce Lee was like God. I mean, I was a fanatic as a kid. So
I never really had anybody like that I looked up to until I got my first mentor, in the Army. But I had one hero growing up. I wanted to live that lifestyle, and I do. And it was William Walker. They call him a filibuster. Filibuster is actually a name of what people do. And so it's not just something that the Senate and the Congress do. It's actually a term of work. So anyways, I just enjoyed William Walker. And I guess if you want to say I had a hero, I guess that would have been it. But
I thought that when you said Walker, I thought you were going to say Chuck Norris and just combat Bruce Lee with Chuck Norris. Walker, Texas Ranger.
No, not at all, dude. William Walker was a real dude, and he believe it or not, he was the only American. He was from Tennessee who was president of Nicaragua. It was almost a bloodless coup that he did. And Vanderbilt, Gloria Vanderbilt's father. And if you don't know Gloria Vanderbilt, well, you see her son. I might check me on that. But you see him often on CNN. Little white-haired dude that is one
Anderson
of the
Cooper, Pooper Scooper.
That's right.
Yep.
That's Gloria Vanderbilt's son. It's not
Correct,
her grandson.
Yep.
So, like I said, my mind slipped for a second because he's the grandson of Commodore Vanderbilt. So, anyways, I guess I bored you with my guy, and so let's get back to the Mandalorian. What you see, I think, is real human development. You can see biases changing. You can see ideas and thoughts changing. I agree with you on that. And it's in a realistic time and format. It's not like pushed. It doesn't feel pushed. It doesn't feel rushed. They're giving good plot and character development. I can't complain on that. Like I said, I'm a fan. I'm not going to hate on it.
I love the fact that you haven't seen any faces. Everybody's kept their helmets on. I hope that sticks all the way through the first season at least. We don't get to see anybody's face or really know much of the background. I think that keeps that mystery going, which I love. I love the fact when they're arguing amongst themselves, it doesn't reflect that when they need each other, they all have each other's back. And even when he's under attack because he saves the baby, the guy he was arguing with earlier is the guy who saves him later. So like they really are a tight-knit group where they have each other's back, which goes back to the Mandalorian lore from the original canon, by the way. This is not something just Disney just came up with. That's how the original canon was, which was written. I think it was done even by folks for Lucas, before Lucas came up with the whole Mandalorian backstory. A lot of the fan work that came out of the books and comics and all that stuff, he said, okay, that'll be part of the canon. That's cool. And he incorporated a lot of that stuff later on. He had a lot of that to be part of the canon. But remember, he didn't write all the books or all the comics back in the day. That was written by individual people who came in with their ideas and stuff. And I love the way that Disney's doing this with this series, because they're saying, okay, we're picking all this stuff that used to be canon and we're incorporating it to our canon. So it doesn't confuse what is and what isn't. Also, and one thing that people complain about, which there's no reason to complain if you understand, logistics, this also creates a narrative where now you can actually have an easier path if you're a new fan, for example, to what is, the timelines and storylines which are real canon, and you don't have to read 6,000 books that some of them don't follow a certain canon or like spin-offs or have their own interpretation of something. Now you know exactly where everything is. But I love the fact that even though they're taking some stuff from the Legend Star Wars and kind of fixing it up to fit their narrative, it's very close to the way it was in the original, Legends. And the Mandalorian way of being is very, very close to that. Even the suit, it could take a blaster shot. It's, made of the same kind of material as the Legends Mandalore armor, which that's something that, some people are confused about. They think Boba Fett is a real Mandalorian. He's not. He's a clone of a person who wasn't even a real Mandalorian either. Even though Jango Fett did have Mandalorian armor, Boba never has. His metal is different, and it's a whole story behind that. And by the way, we haven't touched on this, but there's a possibility that Boba Fett is going to be brought into the series because either he or somebody wearing something very close to what he wears is in a couple of shots in the first couple of episodes. So there's a very good chance that he might somewhere be fit into this. He's a bounty hunter also. And he's not part of this group of Mandalorians. So he's, doing his own thing, and he did survive the Sarlacc pit. So,
right,
from
that's
Return of the
canon.
Jedi. Right, that's part of canon.
And he did have Beskar still. That's
correct.
A misnomer that's been put out. I know who put it out. I've seen it. But with canon, all the books, like Jaster Morrill, it wasn't the Jaster Morrill that adopted and made Jango Fett a Mandalorian. Because he did get mentored and fought besides Jaster Morrill. So he is a real Mandalorian. So I've heard you say that before, and that's not canon. That every book I've read stresses this. The only thing, if you look at,
well, he was but he wasn't born a Mandalorian because of the right. But he wasn't born Mandalorian. He was made into one.
He's a clone of an actual Mandalorian,
right?
And Mandalorian is a culture.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, Boba Fett hasn't been officially named Mandalorian. I mean, there's some stuff in the comics I haven't read from the new comics that are out there, but they might have. I mean, there is a whole new Mandalorian movement that happened within the comics. So now, Jester Morel did mentor, without a doubt, Jango Fett. That was the person who brought him in. Jester Morel was a male human, also. So you got to remember, he was born. I think it was called Concord Dawn. And that's in the Outer Rim, in the Mandalore sector. So he was part of that section of Mandalore either way. So he was, while he wasn't an original Mandalorian, like you said, that's more of a way of life now. The original Mandalorians are like gone, but it's still you have to be brought in from a Mandalorian who's of generations. And Boba Fett being a clone, I don't think they've explored his. Being brought into a certain sect of Mandalore. I think he might still be just the bounty hunter doing things on his own. I'd love to see what they do with him on the live action and with the canon. I haven't read all the comics, because there's a lot of stuff they've put out. But as far from what I've read, there's a good chance that he'll probably end up being or will be in some Mandalorian family, and he'll be a Mandalorian officially. But I'd love to see them include, Boba Fett and see his timeline. Like I said, he survived the Sarlacc pit, so there is definitely more story to tell there. And a lot of fans were really upset where when they announced the Mandalorian series, they had people were like, okay, this is probably going to be with Boba Fett, and then it wasn't. So I'm pretty sure the powers that are running the show heard that, and that's why you got a little glimpse of Boba, because he is a super popular character, which I never really understood why he was so popular, even though he's a cool-looking character. But I understood why the Mandalorians are popular, because of the backstory from the Legends and what I've seen on Rebels and over the years. They're really cool storylines. But Boba's storyline is kind of goofy if you watch the original trilogy. He has a couple cool lines, and then he dies, quote unquote, and we know he survives now. But even the way he was killed off in Return of the Jedi was kind of goofy. A blind Han Solo hits him, and he falls into the Sarlacc pit. He has a jetpack malfunction, and that's, it was kind of a goofy way of killing him. So that's why I was really happy when they said, okay, he survives, so they can, bring him back somehow. So I hope that at the end of the series, somehow he's involved, with this season, by the way, the end of this season, that he's somehow brought in further involved. But either way, he's a bounty hunter. So down the road, if he is still alive in this timeline, I think somehow he'll be brought back. And what I love, one thing I want to definitely get your thoughts on this, is and going back to Baby Yoda here, talking about taking your time developing the characters. There's a moment
for a few minutes, brother. I gotta answer my door, and my dog's gonna be barking.
Oh, go for it. I'll reiterate the question when you come back. One thing I do love is the simple fact that they are taking their time to develop the characters, and there's a moment in the show that I got real emotional almost, because it really brought me back to the original trilogy, and it's that moment where the Mandalorian is about to lose the battle against the big ass creature. I forgot that creature's name, and he's trying to get the egg for the Jawas. And the baby just starts trying to help him, and he has that moment like Yoda where he lifts the creature, and the Mandalorian looks at him, and he's like, "You're doing that?" All you needed was, a little heavier music, and that was one of the most epic Star Wars moments I've seen in decades. And it was a beautifully done shot. The camera work was perfect. And it's funny because it's a little puppet, but it shows you with the right emotional key, if it's well written, well acted, and you infuse action with drama, you can hit a nerve on any fan when it comes to Star Wars with something as small as a little hand puppet moving his hand around and just hit you where you feel it. Is, if you're a Star Wars fan like myself for 30 plus years, things like that take you right back to the original trilogy. It makes you feel like you're sitting in theaters as a kid watching Star Wars all over again, because it's those little key moments in Star Wars which it really brings you to the core of what Star Wars is, and I love that. And I know they haven't named the baby yet, and we were talking about this on my show, Jackal Said. The name, I think, would be something that we'll probably find out at the very end of the series, if they haven't announced it on this last episode, which I don't think they have. But I would love for the name to be a cross between Yoda and Yaddle, which I think, and this is my theory, I think those are the parents.
I agree.
I would love the name to be Jedi, with a Y instead of a J for Jedi, even a Y like Yoda, Yaddle, Jedi, and or Jedi, or something like that, which will throw back to the Jedis also, and kind of give you a hint of where his lineage is. And people are like, wait a second, if it's Yoda and Yaddle, they were on the Jedi Council in the prequels, how can this be their baby? Remember, this species ages differently. This package they were looking for before we knew what it was had been there for 50 years. Okay, it's something they've been looking for 50 plus years. The thing could be 50, 60, we don't know the exact age, but it fits in with the prequels, and also fits in when Yaddle disappears after episode 1. Why did she disappear? Where did she go off to? What did she go do? Maybe she went off because she was pregnant, and this was the seed that she had to go, and maybe they come out of an egg or something, which she's in a little, egg floating around, right? Maybe that's how they're conceived. So maybe she had to go lay the egg, wait around for it to be born. It took maybe several years, because we don't know how they age. And now, maybe she died along the way somehow. They killed her, Order 66, and somebody else was in care of the baby, and it's aging slower than normal humans would age. So even though it's been 50 plus years, it doesn't matter. It's still at that age.
Right.
That's something that it fits in perfectly, and it ties in the prequels to what's going on now in this series.
Right. Here's the quote. I found it, and I'm going to have to bounce off here shortly, but here's why you can't exterminate us, Erutai. We're not huddled in one place. We span the galaxy. We need no lords or leaders, so you can't destroy our command. We can live without technology, so we can fight with our bare hands. We have no species or bloodline, so we can rebuild our ranks from others who want to join us. We're more than just a people or an army, Erutai. Erutai means outsider in Mandalore. We're a culture. Right. We're an idea, and you can't kill ideas. But we can certainly kill you. And that was a quote by Mandalore the Destroyer. And that's why I say that, it's as long as a Mandalore brings you into Mandalore and you get accepted and you accept their culture, you're Mandalorian. But once you remove your helmet, that's like, well, you're going to have to see the movie today. But you'll see where he says, she asks if he removes his helmet ever. And he says, no, what would happen if you did? And he explains to her what would happen. It's basically he's excommunicated, shunned.
Right.
So he's broken a tenet of the religion. The armor and the weapons are a religion. But with that, hey, you want to close this out? And then I'll close it out here in a few. And we'll do another show on this. But like I said, I have to get going. But it's been an epic show so far.
No problem. We'll definitely do a part 2 to this. So whenever you want, I recorded on my end also. If you want to have an edited version, I can send it to you later. Just to close out, like I said, I'm gonna probably go end up watching the episode now after we're done here, and I can't wait to see it. It's been just an amazing series so far. I can't tell you how happy I am that they're doing at least this kind of fan service. And after episode 9 comes out in about a year, Kathleen Kennedy's going to probably be gone from Lucasfilms, and the rumor already is that Jon Favreau might be taking over. And if that's the case, and this is the kind of Star Wars we're going to get, it's going to be a fun decade coming up, folks. So look forward to a lot more Star Wars greatness if that happens, because he gets it. I mean, he's part of what made Marvel great with the Iron Man and the stuff he was in. Remember, he plays Happy in Iron Man. And he directed the first Iron Man and the second Iron Man, and he's behind a lot of the ideas and the writing that's gone on in that series also of Marvel Universe, Marvel MCU.
I never really followed any of the Marvel Universe, honestly.
Well, he's one of the brains behind it, and now he's been brought over to do Star Wars as well. And he's a lifelong diehard Star Wars fan. I mean, he's as big a fan as anybody. This is like his baby. And if this is the kind of stuff that we're going to get from him, I cannot wait till Kathleen Kennedy moves out the way and he takes over as the brains behind what we're going to get cinematically in Star Wars, because he really pays attention to detail. He's a great director, great actor, and he's also in Spider-Man. He's a big actor, and he's been around for decades doing movies and TV. So the future is bright for all you naysayers in the Star Wars world. Or Star Wars fandom. The future is bright. Just, calm down. I know it's a lot of negativity, but it's nothing to be negative about. Just because Solo sucked to some of us, the majority of us, I know you liked it, but just because the majority didn't like Solo doesn't mean everything else is going to be, like that. Especially if Jon Favreau's involved. I put all my faith in that dude. That guy is awesome.
We covered everything, I think, on The Mandalorian up to this show. When you see it tonight, do make a show on your own and splice it in on your thoughts on the new show, because you're going to love it and it'll rock. And awesome. With that being said, go check out angelespino.com, and I will put a link in the description in my channel. And I'll also put a link in the description to your Patreon, which I'm proudly a member of. And all of us Star Wars geeks can meet up over there and talk about stuff and have a good time. And with that being said, thank you all for sitting on my big orange couch and listening, drinking your coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation. And I'm going to slowly raise the drawbridge and let you all meander on out. With that being said, thanks for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Shove